I was stepping out of the elevator when my phone buzzed, sharp and insistent, like it already knew it was about to ruin my mood. My brother Nolan's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But old habits die hard. "What's up?" I said, adjusting my blazer as I walked toward my office. His voice came out low and rushed. "Hey, listen, I need a favor." That alone made my shoulders tense. "I'm heading into work," I replied. "Make it quick." There was a pause, then he sighed. "So, about the family brunch tomorrow?" I stopped walking. "What about it?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then he dropped his voice even more, like he was afraid the walls might hear him. "Please don't show up." I let out a short laugh. "You're joking." "I'm not," he said quickly. "It's just, I've got a friend coming and he's got strong opinions. He thinks you might complicate things." I stared straight ahead at the glass doors of my office, my reflection staring back at me. Calm, polished, unreadable. "Complicate things how?" I asked. Nolan cleared his throat. "You know how you are. Confident, direct. He doesn't really like that." I smiled, slow and thin. "So, your solution is to uninvite your sister?" "It's just one brunch," he insisted. "Please, I'm asking you as a favor." A dozen memories flickered through my mind. Me covering for him when he missed deadlines. Me lending him money he never fully paid back. Me being the one who kept the peace whenever he clashed with anyone else in the family. I could have argued. I could have reminded him of all that. Instead, I said, "Okay." He exhaled in relief. "Thank you. Seriously, you're saving me here." "No problem," I replied evenly. "Hope it goes great." I ended the call before he could say anything else. Then I unlocked my office door and stepped inside, letting it close behind me with a soft, final click. I stood there for a moment, my hand still on the handle, and laughed under my breath. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Being underestimated had become a family tradition. I dropped my bag onto the chair and opened my laptop. Emails flooded the screen. Contracts, calendars, numbers that actually mattered. That's when I saw it. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. executive strategy meeting. Attendees, Caldwell Group plus external client. I clicked into the details. Client name, Blake Thornton. My jaw tightened. Blake Thornton wasn't just anyone. He was loud, charming in a way that felt rehearsed, and painfully confident for someone who had never actually built anything himself. I'd crossed paths with him once at a networking event months ago. He'd spent 10 minutes explaining my own industry to me, then asked if I worked in admin. I remembered his smirk clearly. I also remembered correcting him. He hadn't liked that. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. So, this was Nolan's important friend. I let out a slow breath. Revenge didn't always need planning. Sometimes it just needed timing. A knock came at the door. "Come in," I said. My assistant, Marissa, stepped inside holding a tablet. "Morning. You're in early." "Couldn't sleep," I replied. "Tell me about tomorrow's meeting." She glanced down. "The Caldwell Group is bringing their client in to finalize the partnership discussion. They're hoping to lease one of our downtown properties." I nodded. "Is the client aware of who they're meeting with?" Marissa hesitated. "I don't think so. They referred to you as the representative." I smiled. "Good," I said. "Make sure the full executive team is present and book the large conference room." Her eyes flicked up to mine. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I replied. "Just make sure I'm the one who opens the meeting." Marissa nodded, clearly sensing there was more to this, but smart enough not to ask. That evening, my family group chat came alive. "Mom, brunch tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Don't forget." My cousin reacted with a heart. My sister replied, "So excited." Nolan sent a thumbs up. No one mentioned me. I set my phone face down and didn't respond. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, dressed sharply, calm on the outside, steady on the inside. By the time the conference room filled, I was already standing near the head of the table, reviewing notes. Voices approached from the hallway, confident, loud. The door opened. 3 men walked in. And then I saw him. Blake Thornton stopped mid-step. His smile vanished, his face drained of color, his eyes locked on mine like he was seeing a ghost. I met his stare without blinking. He swallowed hard. "You, what are you doing here?" I straightened, smoothing my blazer, and offered a professional smile that held zero warmth. "Good morning," I said calmly. "I'm glad you could make it." The room went quiet. I stepped forward, placing my hands on the back of the chair at the head of the table. "My name is Alyssa Monroe," I continued, "and I'll be leading today's meeting." Blake's mouth opened. No sound came out, and for the first time, I saw it clearly on his face. Regret. Blake didn't sit down right away. He just stood there, one hand gripping the back of a chair, his confidence leaking out of him second by second. The 2 executives from Caldwell Group exchanged quick looks, clearly confused by the sudden shift in energy. I took my seat at the head of the table anyway. "Please," I said calmly, gesturing toward the chairs. "Let's get started. We're on a tight schedule." That snapped them back into motion. Chairs scraped, notepads opened, water glasses were touched, but not lifted. Blake finally sat, stiff as a statue. I clicked the remote and the screen behind me lit up with our company logo. Clean, minimal, powerful. "As you know," I began, Heartline Development specializes in long-term commercial partnerships. We don't just lease properties. We invest in the people behind the projects. One of the Caldwell executives nodded. "That's exactly why we're here." I smiled politely and turned my attention back to Blake. "Mr. Thornton, before we dive into numbers, I'd love to hear, in your own words, what you're looking for." He cleared his throat. "Well, my team and I are expanding. We need a space that reflects growth." "Of course," I said, "and accountability." His brow furrowed slightly. I clicked to the next slide. Market projections, tenant expectations, risk analysis. Each point landed cleanly, backed by data he clearly hadn't reviewed. As I spoke, I watched him realize something uncomfortable. This wasn't a casual meeting. This wasn't a room he could charm his way through. Halfway through the presentation, one of the Caldwell executives leaned forward. "Miss Monroe, your approach is impressive. I wasn't aware you'd be directly involved." "I'm directly involved in all final approvals," I replied evenly, "especially when the partnership carries reputational weight." Blake shifted in his seat. "And," I added, glancing at him, "when the client has a public-facing role." The room went quiet for a moment. Blake tried to smile. "I'm sure we can align. I mean, I know your brother." I didn't react. Not immediately. "Oh," I said after a beat. "You mean Nolan?" "Yes," he said quickly, eager for footing. "Great guy. We're close." "Interesting," I replied. "Because Nolan never mentioned you." That wasn't true, but Blake didn't need to know that. The Caldwell executives exchanged another look, this one sharper. I folded my hands. "Let me be clear. Personal relationships don't influence our decisions here. Performance does. Professionalism does." Blake nodded too fast. "Of course. I wouldn't expect otherwise." "Good," I said. "Then you won't mind addressing a few concerns." I tapped the screen again. A list appeared. Missed deadlines, overpromised projections, partnerships that quietly dissolved. Nothing dramatic, nothing exaggerated, just facts. Blake's face tightened. "These aren't deal breakers," I continued calmly, "but they are patterns, and we take patterns seriously." One of the Caldwell executives spoke carefully. "This information wasn't disclosed to us." "It's part of our due diligence," I replied, "which is why we exist." Blake opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he wasn't the loudest voice in the room. The meeting wrapped up 20 minutes early. As everyone stood, the Caldwell team thanked me and stepped out to discuss next steps privately. Blake lingered. The door closed behind the others, leaving just the two of us. He exhaled sharply. So, this is what this is about. I met his gaze. This is about business. He laughed nervously. Come on. Nolan said. I don't care what Nolan said, I interrupted, my voice still calm, but firmer now. And I especially don't care what you assumed. His jaw clenched. You could have told me. I stood, gathering my folder. You could have shown basic respect the first time we met. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he muttered, So, what happens now? I offered a small, professional smile. That depends on how you handle being told no. His eyes widened slightly. I opened the door. Rena will walk you out. As he left, shoulders tense, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not satisfaction. Clarity. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Nolan. Hey, weird question. Did you meet Blake this morning? I stared at the message. Then I typed back. Me. Yes. We had a meeting. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Nolan. He looked shaken. What did you do? I smiled to myself. Me. I showed up. And for the first time, I knew this wasn't just about Blake anymore. It was about everything that came next. Nolan didn't reply right away. I set my phone down and turned back to my desk, but the quiet in the office felt different now, lighter, like something heavy had finally been set down. Through the glass wall, I could see my team moving with purpose, unaware of the family tension slowly unraveling outside these walls. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Nolan, we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Me. I'm at work. A pause. Nolan. I know. I'll come by. I didn't stop him. By the time Nolan arrived, the brunch was probably already underway. Mom's house would be full of laughter, plates clinking, someone talking too loud about plans that never included me. For once, the thought didn't sting. Rena tapped on my door. Your brother is here. Send him in, I said. Nolan stepped inside looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. He wore the same sweater he always wore to family events, the safe one, the one that blended in. He shut the door behind him. Why didn't you tell me? I gestured to the chair across from me. Tell you what, that you run the company Blake was meeting with, he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. I mean, you could have warned me. I folded my hands on the desk. You didn't warn me you were uninviting me from brunch. He flinched. That wasn't... He started, then stopped. That was different. How? I asked quietly. He looked away. I was just trying to keep things smooth. So was I replied. I kept things smooth by not arguing, by not embarrassing you, by letting you think you could ask me to shrink, and I'd do it without complaint. Nolan rubbed his face. Blake says you humiliated him. I tilted my head. Did I raise my voice? No. Did I insult him? No. Did I lie? He hesitated. No. Then what exactly did I do? Silence filled the room. You let him walk into a room where he didn't have control, I said gently. And he wasn't ready for that. Nolan sank into the chair. You don't get it. He was supposed to impress everyone today. I held his gaze. Including you? That landed harder than I expected. He swallowed. I just wanted things to go right. For who? I asked. Because it wasn't me. He didn't answer. A message popped up on my screen, an email from Caldwell Group. After internal discussion, we've decided to move forward with Heartline development under revised terms. We appreciate your transparency and leadership. I didn't hide the screen when Nolan noticed it. His eyes widened. They're still working with you? Yes, I said. Just not with Blake. He let out a breath. So, he's out? He is, I confirmed. And that's not revenge. That's consequence. Nolan stood slowly. Mom's going to ask where you are. I shrugged. She didn't ask before. He looked like he wanted to argue. Then he sighed. Blake made it sound like you were trying to make a point. I smiled faintly. I was. What point? That I don't ruin things, I said. I built them. And anyone who can't see that doesn't belong at my table, professional or personal. Nolan nodded slowly, like something was finally clicking into place. I didn't realize how much I've been doing this, he admitted, asking you to be smaller. I softened then. I know, and I let it happen. We sat in silence for a moment. I should go, he said finally. Brunch is probably wrapping up. Tell them I said hi, I replied. He paused at the door. Will you come by later? I considered it. Maybe. After he left, I looked out at the city beyond the glass, sunlight reflecting off buildings I'd helped reshape. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like proving anything. I'd already done that, and the day wasn't over yet. I didn't go to brunch. Instead, I stayed at the office a little longer than usual, tying up loose ends and signing off on documents that would shape the next quarter. By the time I shut down my computer, the sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the floor. It felt like a good stopping point. Clean, intentional. When I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. Mom, are you okay? Nolan said you were busy. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then typed back. Me. I'm fine. Just working. The reply came quickly. Mom, we missed you today. I didn't know if that was true or just something people said when guilt finally caught up. Either way, it was more than I usually got. I drove home, changed into something comfortable, and was halfway through reheating leftovers when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Nolan standing there, hands in his pockets, looking unsure. Hey, he said, I figured I'd check on you. I stepped aside to let him in. He glanced around my place like he was seeing it for the first time. The clean lines, the framed photos from trips I'd taken alone, the quiet stability. Mom kept asking about you, he said. I didn't know what to say. You could have told the truth, I replied gently, that I'm not always available when someone decides I don't fit the picture. He nodded. I know. I messed up. At the small table near the window, he looked tired, not from the day, but from carrying expectations that weren't really his. Blake was unbearable, he admitted. Once you weren't there, he kept making comments about people, about standards. I don't know why I didn't see it before. Because it was easier not to, I said. He sighed. He called me after the meeting, said you played him. I raised an eyebrow. Did I? No, he said quickly. You just showed him who was in charge. I smiled. That's not playing someone. That's being honest. Nolan leaned back. You know, everyone at brunch talks about your work like it's some mystery. They don't really understand what you do. They don't need to, I replied, but they do need to respect it. He nodded slowly. I want to do better. That mattered more than an apology. Later that evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was my sister. Hey, she said, tentative. Mom told me what happened. I waited. I didn't realize Nolan asked you not to come, she continued. That wasn't fair. No, I agreed. It wasn't. A pause. Then, next weekend, I'm hosting dinner. I want you there. I smiled softly. I'll think about it. After the call ended, I stood by the window and watched the city lights flicker on one by one. Somewhere across town, Blake Thornton was probably replaying the meeting in his head, wondering how he'd lost control so quickly. But he wasn't my concern anymore. A few days later, Caldwell Group finalized the revised partnership. The project moved forward. My team celebrated with takeout and laughter in the break room, the kind that comes from earning something, not demanding it. That weekend, I did show up to dinner. This time, no one whispered when I walked in. No one looked uncomfortable. Nolan greeted me with a genuine smile. Mom hugged me a little tighter than usual. At the table, conversation flowed easily. And for once, I wasn't trying to prove I belonged. I already did. As I drove home later that night, I felt something warm settle in my chest. Not victory, not revenge, balance. Because sometimes the best ending isn't watching someone fall. It's standing tall, being seen clearly, and knowing you'll never agree to disappear again.